Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're literally zooming out to look at the entire Earth. We're going to uncover the hidden rules and those invisible physical forces that meticulously design our planet's ecosystems. It turns out our whole world is structured by just a few fundamental laws of nature. So let's dive right into the core mystery here. Have you ever wondered why life looks so drastically different depending on where you stand? Like, why are the equatorial latitudes just blanketed in lush green rainforests, while other areas are completely barren sand? It's so easy to think it's just random chance, but as we're about to see, the biosphere is a highly organized system. To solve this mystery, here's our roadmap for the explainer. First, we'll meet the ultimate ecosystem architect, then we'll explore the major land biomes. After that, we'll map out the rules of water, dive into those aquatic biomes, and finally, we'll wrap up by unraveling the productivity paradox. Let's get into it. Starting off with Section 1, the ultimate ecosystem architect, the physical rules that actually design our planet. Okay. So the absolutely crucial starting point is understanding what a biome actually is. Essentially, it's a massive geographic region dictated entirely by its climate and the unique life that's adapted to survive there. We mostly identify them by their dominant vegetation. And here's the really vital takeaway. Biomes do not care about political borders. The biome you're sitting in right this second, it was decided by the climate long before humans ever drew lines on a map. And this is exactly why a rainforest in Borneo and one in the Congo share the exact same structural organization. We're talking things like a dense canopy, super limited light on the floor, and really rapid nutrient cycling. Now, even though they contain completely different species, they share the exact same ecological strategies because climate, not chance, is the ultimate architect building these communities. It's really cool when you map out the world's major terrestrial biomes. You really only need two variables, mean annual temperature and mean annual precipitation. That's it. Those two things alone dictate water availability and how long the growing season is. And amazingly, the biomes fall into these largely non-overlapping clusters based strictly on those two physical rules. But nature rarely draws sharp borders with a thick black marker. Instead, these climatic clusters kind of blend together into what we call ecotones. These gradual transition zones are basically biological melting pots. They're incredibly special because they are these highly diverse edge communities where specialists from multiple adjacent biomes overlap and mingle together. All right, moving on to Section 2, exploring major land biomes. Think of this as a rapid-fire tour of Earth's terrestrial extremes. Think about the stark difference between these two environments. In the tropical rainforest, you're getting over 2,000 millimeters of rain. The warm, incredibly moist conditions mean dead matter decomposes in literally weeks. So nutrient cycling is super rapid, which actually means the nutrients are locked up in the living plants themselves, leaving surprisingly poor soil. Now contrast that with the temperate deciduous forest. Trees there shed their leaves for the winter, and that, slower winter decomposition, allows organic matter to pile up, which actually builds incredibly rich, fertile soil. Moving further north, we hit the boreal forest, or taiga. This is actually the largest terrestrial biome by area on the entire planet. Here, those waxy conifer needles are a strict adaptation to survive bitter freezing temps and conserve water. Then, if we look below that in the intermediate moisture bands, we find grasslands. Here, there's enough moisture to keep it from becoming a desert, but not quite enough to support a full forest. So frequent fires, usually sparked by drought and lightning, step up to play a crucial structural role. They recycle nutrients and keep the landscape wide open, which supports those spectacular large mammal communities. Now consider the number 60. Just 60 days. In the tundra, there's a permanently frozen layer of soil called permafrost sitting right below the surface. It totally restricts deep roots and stops drainage, leaving a brutally short growing season of fewer than 60 days a year. It's an incredibly harsh environment. Only the absolute toughest, low-lying shrubs and mosses can survive it. So while the tundra battles freezing temperatures up north, deserts are defined by one strict rule: intense aridity. We're talking under 250 millimeters of rain a year. And remember, it's not just about heat. There are freezing cold deserts too. The main evolutionary driver here is extreme dryness. That forces some unbelievable adaptations like succulent stems, highly concentrated urine, and nocturnal hunting, all just to conserve a few precious drops of water. Let's shift gears for Section 3, the rules of water. We're moving from land to liquid. Aquatic biomes cover a massive 75% of Earth's surface. Think about that. Most of our planet plays by a completely different rulebook. Because we're no longer dealing with atmospheric weather in the same way, this massive liquid world needs a completely new set of master variables to organize its life. Notice how the ultimate architects just totally flip here. Instead of temperature and precipitation building the environment like on land, the watery world is ruled by two totally different master variables: salinity, so the concentration of salts, and light penetration, basically how deep the sun can reach. Let's break those down. Salinity dictates the entire chemical makeup of the environment. It strictly divides the aquatic world into freshwater systems, which obviously have very low salt, and these salty oceans. And right in between, we have these highly variable estuaries. Basically, if an organism isn't adapted to the specific salinity of its biome, its cells literally cannot function. It's a hard boundary. Then, the second master variable is light. This defines the photic zone. In the open ocean, this sunlit zone stops at roughly 200 meters deep, and that is absolutely crucial. It separates the surface where photosynthesis can happen from the aphotic zone, which is the permanent, crushing darkness below where life has to rely entirely on whatever sinks down from above or on chemical energy. Section 4. Diving into aquatic biomes. Let's briefly look at freshwater, oceans, and coasts. Freshwater systems are incredibly varied, right? You've got cold, fast headwater streams all the way to hugely productive wetlands that purify water and store tons of carbon. Eventually, a lot of these rivers flow out into estuaries. Estuaries are these incredibly dynamic mixing zones where fresh and saltwater intermingle. They serve as essential, nutrient-rich nurseries for countless fish and bird species. But sadly, because they sit right on the coastlines, they are disproportionately threatened by human development. It's wild to think about the outsized impact of specific coastal zones. Coral reefs cover less than 1% of the ocean floor. Less than 1%. Yet they harbor roughly a quarter of all marine species. They pull off this staggering biodiversity and productivity thanks to a really tight mutualism between the coral animals and their photosynthetic algae, thriving right up there in that sunlit photic zone. Finally, let's wrap up with Section 5, the productivity paradox. This is the ultimate currency of life. We measure this currency using net primary productivity, or NPP. Simply put, it's the amount of carbon fixed by photosynthesis minus what the plants use up themselves. Now, if we were to measure productivity strictly per square meter, the terrestrial rainforest absolutely towers over both the frozen tundra and the open ocean. It's not even close. But what's truly fascinating here is the why behind these numbers. The rainforest has exceptionally high productivity per square meter. But remember, if you clear it, the whole system collapses because the nutrients are locked up in the living biomass, not the soil. On the flip side, the open ocean has abysmally low NPP per unit area. It's essentially a blue desert. Why? Because its nutrients are constantly sinking down into the darkness, completely out of that light-filled photic zone where they're actually needed. So, I want to leave you with this final puzzle to ponder. If the open ocean is such a barren blue desert per square meter, with nutrients constantly sinking out of reach, how does it still manage to contribute a massive fraction of Earth's total annual carbon fixation? Well, the answer lies in its sheer, incomprehensible scale. It might be sparse, but its immense size makes it a giant, quiet engine that is absolutely vital for our planet's survival. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the invisible rules of the world around you.